Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here on Wave Now. I'm Myra Ansari. I hope you're having a good day so far. So, we often talk about scams here on this platform because so many people fall victim to them, and they often think, well, I would never fall for that. But it happens more often than you think, and it can happen to anyone. So, there's a new website that has been launched to help folks just be more aware of the scams that are going around. So, joining me today is Darren Allen, the manager of Division of Court Security, to talk about this website. Darren, thanks so much for making time for us today. Tell us all about this and why you all decided to launch this website.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. We got involved because it involves jury scams and arrest warrant scams. Oftentimes people are notified that they missed a jury service. And also it's very easy to fabricate an arrest warrant and sign a judge's name to it. And the fact that oftentimes people are singled out by their name, it makes it seem legitimate. So people fall prey to the tactics, and they're told, look, if you don't want to go to jail, you need to give us your credit card and pay a fine to avoid missing a jury service. And, responsible people, they don't like knowing that they owe a bill or that they've done something wrong. So oftentimes this leads to a sense of urgency that will cause these folks to panic and maybe make a bad decision and give their financial information. And then we're just trying to be a little proactive here and kind of educate the public. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Obviously, the state police, the sheriff's association, the attorney general's office, they all do a great job in letting the folks know. But we this is just kind of our way of assisting in that endeavor.
I always say that bad actors, bad people out there, this is their job. So they're going to work hard at it. They're going to be very convincing.
Yes.
They're going to make everything look real and legitimate. Darren, kind of tell me about the lengths they go to convince you that you're in trouble.
Well, this happened in LaRue County a couple of weeks ago where a lady was notified she missed a jury service. It happened in Hopkins County very recently, I think maybe the end of last week or possibly yesterday. But people are notified that the folks that resort to these criminal measures, they do a little study, they do a little homework, and they study up on the names of individuals that they feel like are vulnerable. They'll either issue a phone call or possibly send an email. And it's really easy to get information on people, their name, their address, and then if you know anything about the county, you're going to be able to identify the district judge. So if you attach a name of a district judge to a warrant or some type of paper that you fraudulently created, the folks don't know, the citizens don't know, so oftentimes they respond. And that's just kind of why we got involved, specifically to let people know, look, there's no reason for you to give your financial information out over the phone. The court we don't receive financial information over the phone. And if you feel like someone's trying to scam you, just hang up the phone and contact your local circuit court clerk, and they can answer those questions for you and verify if there is a warrant or some type of summons or a missed jury duty.
Darren, talk to me about how officials, when they are serving a warrant or they're notifying you of jury duty, how they would typically do it versus someone who is trying to scam you.
Typically the police, and I was a trooper for 23 years, but typically the police are the ones that will always serve a warrant. Sometimes people are made aware that there's a warrant on them, maybe a fail to appear. I mean, there are some instances where people forget to go to court and there's a warrant that gets issued. A lot of times it's a summons, but most of the time the police will be the ones that will let you know this. But it's just uncommon for some type of legal action to just pop out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of the people, even though they say they may not know, most of the people know, they've run afoul of the law or they've had some type of interaction and they didn't follow up on it. So they kind of know in the back of their mind, hey, there's probably some type of legal action out there. But when you're notified by someone that you don't know, and honestly, a lot of times it's people with broken English. That ought to be a red flag. I mean, if someone's contacting you with broken English, they don't sound like they're from your county, then you probably need to ask some questions. It's okay. Take a breath, get a notepad out, get a pencil, pen, Hey, what's your name? Who do you work for? Now, what do you say? Do you say I missed a jury service? What county? Start asking those questions. And if they're hesitant or reluctant to answer those questions, that ought to be a red flag. That ought to be something that concerns you, that you're possibly about to be scammed. But again, I can't say it enough. There's no reason to ever give your financial information out over the phone or on an email in which you did not initiate that contact. If that's one lesson to be learned today, and it's something that we all say, don't give your financial or personal information out unless you initiated that call.
Darren, I'm going to pull up this website so our viewers can see it. Tell me the website, and then what do folks do when they navigate this?
It's the KCOJ, Kentucky Court of Justice, and you just go to KCOJ at kycourts.net, or just type in KCOJ, and you'll see a scam alert. You've actually got it highlighted there. And there's a video. Unfortunately, they picked the least attractive guy in the building here to make that video, but I'm on the video, and it's just like a 1 minute 30-second video, self-help. It gives you some tips on what is a scam. It kind of highlights the way that they will scam you, and it gives you some helpful advice to avoid being scammed, and if you are scammed, what you can do next.
Okay, so I've also put a link to this website in our stream. So if you look in the description area, you can click on it directly. Darren, people often think, well, it's a certain demographic, a certain age group that falls for scams. That is not the case.
No, it's not. I mean, scams are all ages, both genders. I mean, everybody is vulnerable. It does appear that sometimes they want to target the elderly, and I only say that from personal experience. I very seldom ever get calls from telemarketers, but when I'm visiting my parents, it seems like the phone doesn't stop ringing. I'm sure that's by design, So obviously, we all have to be vigilant. We all need to be aware, because we're all vulnerable to these type of scams. But it does appear that our elderly are targeted a little bit more than maybe some of the rest of us.
And then how often, Darren, when someone has gotten your information, they've got money from you, am I going to see my money again?
That's tough. Oftentimes the bank will cover that loss. In some instances, if you have some type of credit protection agency that's assisting you, sometimes they'll cover that loss. But oftentimes, it's the most frustrating thing about investigating these type of crimes. The money's gone many times before we even know we've been scammed. And that's the unfortunate part. As an investigator who used to, check into these type of things and investigate these, oftentimes this is a criminal network that's not even in this state. And many times it's outside of our country. So the money's gone. It's frustrating. You feel violated. There's a lot of emotion that comes into play. I mean, you get people who work hard, and then the money's gone and evaporates. And oftentimes it's very hard to criminally prosecute these people. It's hard for us in Kentucky who've been victimized to prosecute someone from another country. I mean, we rely on our federal partners to bring prosecution, and oftentimes that prosecution is very slow in happening. So it's a very discouraging process. We do the best we can. We do have some experts in the field that do a great job, but it's a slow process, oftentimes in recouping the money and even prosecuting the individuals who are committing the crime.
Okay, so Darren, if I get a suspicious call, email, text about jury duty, a warrant out for my arrest, what do I do? How do I notify the proper resources out there to let folks know?
Well, the first thing, I train a lot, and the first thing I'll tell you is when you're faced with something like that, take a breath. There's no reason to be in a hurry. There's no reason to be urgent to let your hair get caught on fire. Obviously, I don't have any, but an innuendo there. But anyway, settle down, take a breath, because these people resort to you panicking, and if you're panicking, they're hoping you're going to make a quick decision. And one that will, let me rectify this situation. Let me give you my credit card number so you can bill me for $25 so I don't miss, because I missed jury duty or or because I've got a warrant on me. The court will never do that. So number one, if you're faced with that particular set of circumstances, you got to know we're not going to collect money over the phone. No court in Kentucky will do that. So that's got to be red flag number one. But take a breath, ask some questions. I mean, it's okay. Ask some questions, and maybe you can develop some information that may help investigators. But ask some questions. Who are you with? Now, what county did you say I missed my jury service? And if you feel uncomfortable, you don't want to do that, just hang up the phone. And then if you're wondering, okay, maybe I did miss a jury service, then you just contact your local circuit court clerk, not county clerk, two different offices within our county government, circuit court clerk, and they can answer those questions for you regarding court action, possibly an arrest warrant or a missed jury service. Or if you get notification someone sued you and you need to validate and verify that, that's what the circuit court, that's one of the services they provide, and they can answer that question for you.
A lot of times, is it if they're calling you, will you notice a local area code that's familiar to you, or will it be like a random number, like an international number?
You mentioned in the outset, I mean, these folks constantly get more sophisticated in their efforts. And they're getting better. We try to get better in investigating them and apprehending them. I say we, like I'm still a trooper. I'm not. I'm retired. But I know the law enforcement professionals. These folks, as we get better at investigating them, they get better and more sophisticated at covering their tracks, so to speak. But yeah, it's they do use local numbers. I guess there's apps on the phone that you can kind of subscribe to and kind of identify, kind of disguise your number. But yes, we do understand that sometimes the local area code or a local prefix number is similar to yours. That does make the scam a little bit more believable and therefore more vulnerable to being victimized for a scam.
And Darren, as far as the website, which I have pulled up here, are you all focusing more on just a broad scope of these are the scams going around, or are you warning folks of the scams involving warrants and jury duty? What exactly is the focus of the website, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's kind of why we got involved, to focus on the warrant scams, anything that might be relative to the court system, Kentucky Court of Justice, anything that might have a judge's signature attached to it that doesn't look right. I mean, there are probably many ways that we've not even discussed that you can scam. But we just want people to be vigilant. I'm excited about this, even though I played a small part. I'm excited that we're proactive in this. We're trying to help our citizens be more vigilant. Honestly, this is something that we never need to release from our radar. We always need to be aware that, as you said earlier, there's just evil people out there that are trying to take money from hardworking folks. And this is just one way that we can help educate and cause people to be more aware of these type of situations and scams. And hopefully they'll say no, hang up the phone. But honestly, if a scammer does this 10 times, 9 people may hang up the phone, but all it takes is one. Is okay, here's my social security, or here's my credit card, here's my bank information. So if you're successful 1 out of 10 times, that's a pretty good return on investment if you're a criminal.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
This information has been so helpful. Even one of our viewers joining us on Facebook right now, Teresa Peels, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. She said, I'm glad you're bringing attention to this. So this is something, folks, that, we need to talk about. And Darren, my last question for you is, I know that so many people, when they fall victim to scams, whether it be the kind that you're talking about now, or just in general, they feel so much shame and guilt. And they're like, oh my gosh, I was such an idiot. I can't believe I did this. I lost so much money. There's shame that goes into it. And that's why we want to talk about it. So folks, all right, look, it happens more often than you think. And,
absolutely.
Don't feel the shame that you may be feeling.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, don't feel ignorant. Don't feel stupid. It happens. I mean, and it happens to all ages. I mean, the elderly folks say, well, I shouldn't have been so foolish in giving into that trick or that scam, but it happens to all ages. And honestly, the more we know that it happens, the better it is to investigate, the better it is to try to field some information about the various tactics. And honestly, it kind of helps the next person. Here's what they did to you. Let's educate the public on, maybe, because they're going to do it again. Like, as I said, if they're successful one time, they're going to use that tactic yet again. So maybe when you come forward, we may not get your money back. Investigators may not be able to recoup that, but at least it helps us communicate and allow people maybe that will fall victim on down the road to be aware of the tactics. So, but that's a great point. People oftentimes don't come forward because they feel stupid. They feel validated or embarrassed, or they feel like they've been victimized, and they have. But it's the embarrassment oftentimes keeps people from coming forward.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it takes a lot of bravery to say, you know what, I fell for this and I'm so embarrassed, but I don't want this to happen to you. And that's why we're talking about it today. Darren, this has been fantastic information. Again, folks, if you're joining us, I've put a link to the website that Darren has been talking about to help educate folks. Be protective of your personal information, of your money. You worked hard for it. It is not for anybody else. So ask the questions, as Darren mentioned. There's nothing wrong with saying, hold up, let me stop and ask you X, Y, and Z. And if they can't rattle, they may be able to rattle off, but always double check. Don't offer it up so quickly. Darren, what am I not asking you today that you want our viewers to know?
Well, again, if I could just reiterate, there's no reason ever to give your financial information or your personal information to someone who calls you out of the blue. If you have initiated that call, if you have called a company to purchase a product, then yes, it's likely that you will have to give up your financial information. But the reality is this: when someone calls you out of the blue, sends you an email out of the blue, there's no reason, no way that you should ever give your financial information. Just know that going in, and just say, I'm not falling victim to this. And then ask questions. And again, if they're reluctant to answer those questions, that's got to be a red flag. And just hang up the phone. Sometimes it's just best not to say anything at all. And then maybe let the FBI has a website for scams. The Attorney General's office has a website as well. And let that helps the investigators know. There's a phrase we use often in law enforcement: see something, say something. Well, I think that applies to this as well, because it helps us have a broader knowledge and help us to educate the public and be more aware of their tactics. But I appreciate you having me today. I'm sorry if I rambled on.
No. I could talk about this for quite some time. And by the amount of viewers we have, I can see that they're also interested. Darren, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it. I think this has been helpful for folks. Again, that website is in this link. Click on it. Educate yourself. Protect yourself as well. I'm Myra Ansari. I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for joining us.